So when you bake bread, not using a bread machine, although I have one of those too, you have to use yeast. Otherwise, it's just a flat bread, which is also good. But you have to use yeast, and it has to be current. It can't be beyond its expiration date because it loses its oomph if it's too old. And so I have dissolved the equivalent of 2 packets of yeast in warm water, and the water has to be about between 105 and 115 degrees, and it'll start to froth, and I'll show you. Frothy. Anyway, so that gets poured into the mixer, and then all the other ingredients like the salt and the flour, of course. What else is in there? It even calls for butter, but I don't know if I want to put that in there. But anyway, and then you get it all mixed up, and then you let it rest, and you put it in you cover it up, and you in a nice warm area, and let it rise for a couple hours, and then you punch it down. It'll rise. It'll get big as a pillow, and then you punch it down, punch all the air out, and then you knead it a little bit, and then you let it rise again, and then after that second round, you get to cut the dough in half, form your loaves, and then you let it rise again, and then you can stick it in the oven for not very long. Oh hell, I'll figure it out. 25 minutes? Anyway, this is a lame cooking show. At any rate, I'll show you, a few steps, and you can find the a basic French bread recipe anywhere on the net. This one I'm using out of the KitchenAid cookbook that came with my mixer. Love my mixer. So let's take a gander. So this bread is, like I said, is pretty basic. It calls for 2 packages of active dry yeast, 2.5 cups of warm water, which is what you dissolve the yeast in, a tablespoon of salt, a tablespoon of butter, 7 cups of all-purpose flour, 2 tablespoons of cornmeal, 1 egg white, and a tablespoon of cold water. Now the egg white, the cornmeal, and the water are for pre-baking. If you have a nice glossy golden brown top, that's what you use the cold water and the egg white for. And the cornmeal is for the bottom of the baking pan, so it'll just come right off the baking pan when it's done. So into the mixer, the dissolved frothy yeast mixture, yeast and water, and then I like to start out slow with the flour, because you don't want to overload the mixer, and the dough hook will just get stuck, and you'll have a big mess, and you don't want to burn out your mixer. So you want to add a cup at a time, so everything gets mixed right. Otherwise you just have like pockets of flour, and that'll be gross. So in goes 1 tablespoon of salt, just regular old table salt. You can use the non-iodized if you want. Most brands are non-iodized, but I happen to have iodized. And I'm going to start the mixer and get that swirled around. The salt also helps the yeast, those little microbes, give something to munch on besides the flour, and that's what it will give rise. So we start, as long as I don't get the flour all over the floor, it should be okay. And the next segment, I'll show you what the dough looks like after it's all mixed up. So I've got all the ingredients mixed up, and the dough looks like this. And so I get to turn that out into a a lightly greased bowl and cover it up with, you know, a towel and put it in a nice warm spot. You could put it like on your oven, but don't, if you have a gas stove, don't put it directly over the pilot light, because then you'll start to cook it and that won't be good. And of course the surface of the dough will get all dried out and it'll have like a little like dried out layer on top of it, and that isn't good either. So you put it in a nice warm spot and you let it rise for a couple hours, and then you can turn it out and punch it down when it gets, you know, when it doubles in size, and then you can let it rise again, and then cut it in two, and then you bake it, and it'll be good with butter on it. Yum! Alright, so it's been about an hour since I set the dough to rest, and according to the recipe, you let it rise for an hour or until it's double in bulk. But check this out. It's almost to the top of the bowl. So now I get to punch it down and then split it and then let it rise again. Woohoo! So I have the bread loaves in the oven. Just started them about 12 minutes ago. And they're looking mighty fine. Hopefully they'll come out right. So for dinner tonight, we're going to have a turkey noodle soup. Around Thanksgiving, obviously, you kind of wonder what to do with the rest of the bird and all the bones and stuff like that. And a lot of folks, they boil down the carcass of the turkey, and they make what's called a soup stock. So I did that, made 2 large containers full of it, and right now I've got one of them cooking down in the pot. Still kind of frozen, but once that gets all nice and defrosted and warmed up, I can put some turkey in there, and then once that gets all warmed up, I can add noodles. It won't take very long. And of course, you know, we use wide egg noodles, so those cook up real fast, and that's what we'll have for dinner: turkey noodle soup and fresh baked bread. Yum! Well, the bread is done. Check this out. That is going to be so good. It's got to cool though. Nothing worse than burning your tongue on something real hot. So, yay!